Welcome. Today we are going to be building one of our 8122 mustache PCB pins. They light up. This one's black with pink LEDs. They're very cool. In your kit you should have a PCB, a battery holder, a 3-prong switch, 3 resistors, and 3 LEDs, colors of your choice. Along with what's in the kit, we're also going to need basic soldering stuff, including a soldering iron, either wire brush to wipe off your iron, or you can use the wet sponge included with the beginner kit, as well as solder. First things first, we're going to make sure our iron is set to the right temperature. Right now, we want it at 250 Celsius. You can turn this little dial here if you have the same beginner soldering iron as I'm using. You want to turn it so this arrow right here is at 250. This red light will turn on if you plug it in so you know it's on. This is hot, it's very easy to burn yourself. Okay, so here's our PCB. We can move this out of the way for now. Let's see, what do we want to do first? We can do the battery tray first. So because we want a pin right here, we want the battery to come out from the bottom because you won't be able to put it in through the top once there's a pin glued there. So we can set this here like so. Sorry. Set that here like so, and it's loose right now. So now while keeping it down there, we can flip it down the table and we can just quickly tack one of these in place. So holding the iron with your dominant hand and the solder with your alternative hand, you could do something like this. You could press the PCB down with the thing, with the soldering iron. You can add solder, hold it there for a second, and let go. That's a good joint, but now we can see our battery thing is a tad tilted. What I like to do is I like to hold it back in with my hand, and I'm going to reflow that joint. So I'm going to put my iron back on that pad I just soldered, and I'm going to push it back in place. You only want to do this a second because then it'll get hot. So something like that. Okay, I can feel it move. Take my iron off, and now that's flush. Now we should do that for the rest of them. Iron on the pad, add solder, hold it there for a second, and we can do on these other two right here. Like so. And hold it down there, like so. And now that we're done with this, I would recommend using your wire brush or your sponge and giving a quick dab to the side and making sure your tip is clean. Now we can see our battery holder is securely soldered in place. Next thing we can do is our switch. We can do the exact same process for the switch. We put our switch on like so. We can flip it upside down and tack it in with one pin. Oop, that's not in frame. There we go. So now we have the switch right there, and we can solder in one of the rightmost pins. So soldering iron on the pad, then adding solder. Oop. You want to make sure you're adding solder to the pad and not to the soldering iron. If you add to the soldering iron, the heat doesn't flow properly. So now that it's tacked in, we can hold it down with our finger. It's going to be hot. Just don't hold it too long. Hold there. Okay, you feel it snap into place, and that looks flush to me. So now I'm going to do the other 4 joints. These outer 2 are just support, and then the inner 3 actually switch the power lines on and off, but we want all of our joints to be nice and not touching. And we can refill this one a little bit. Okay, so now this is in place. This looks good. We can clean off our soldering iron again. This would be wet sponge if you're using a sponge, or a brush similar to mine. And we can get our capacitors ready. Not capacitors, I'm sorry, resistors. So, resistors come in a line like this. What I like to do is I like to bend each leg 90 degrees inwards, like so. So it's kind of making a U shape like that. Keeping those joints as close to 90 degrees as possible lets it sit nicely on the surface. So now we can put this into each of the pins. That's kind of a tight fit. And push it all the way in so it's sitting flush like this. And we can repeat the same process again and solder it in. This time you don't have to worry about keeping it flush. It's only 2 points. You can just solder both the pads. There's one. And there is the other. Wiping off the soldering iron in your brush or sponge as usual. And then we can repeat this process with the other 2 resistors. So, bend the legs. That looks pretty good to me. Oop, took a second to focus. There we go. That looks pretty good to me. We can put these in the holes. The orientation of these don't matter. On the LEDs it will matter, but for these it does not. Sometimes if it likes to pop out, you can actually bend the legs out. So we can bend the legs in opposing directions like that, and the resistor is less likely to pop out. We can grab our soldering iron again and repeat this for the next one. Looks good. Looks good. And finally we can do the last resistor. Bending the legs in. Flip it around. Push it through. Again, the orientation of this does not matter, but for the LEDs, please be careful, it does. Okay. And let's push that flush so it looks nice. We can solder that joint. Hold there for a second. There we go. And we can do the same for the other one. Okay, now that we have these legs out, we can cut them. I like to use these flush cutters, but in reality, anything works. You can just go up to the joint, so about there, and cut them off. Go boop, 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 boop. Looks pretty good. Okay, next step is going to be getting the LEDs in, and then we should be good. So these LEDs have a long leg and a short leg, and on the PCB there is a square pad and a circular pad. S for square pad and S for short leg, so you can line them up. So we have the short leg of the LED goes into the square pad. That sits in nicely. We can flip it over and repeat the same process. There's one. There's two. And we'll repeat this for the other 2 LEDs. Short leg goes into the square hole. Flip it over like so. And solder. Oop, I should straighten out my solder. Sometimes you get a weird angle. It's easy to straighten your solder out like this so you can get at the angle better. Touching the pad and putting solder on there. Hold it there. Take it off. Put the iron there. Solder. Take it off. That joint wasn't great, but it'll do. And we can do the last one. Short leg goes into the square hole. Flip it over. Solder, make sure to keep it there a second to keep the pad hot. We want the solder to flow to the pad. Oop, I messed that one up. So we can rotate it like there, so we have better access. And we can solder it like so. I should note, the orientation of the board doesn't matter when you're soldering. You should keep it easy so you can access it. These legs will be hot, but we can snip them off with our snippers now. Make sure these don't fly everywhere. Okay, and that is a done PCB. We can get the battery out from this one because I forgot to get a second one. You can put the battery into here, and we can see if our creation turns on for the first time. It does, woo. So, and just like that, oh, you can't see those LEDs, it's gonna over. Yep, but just like that, we have one mustache pin complete, 3 resistors, 3 LEDs, 3.3 volt battery tray, and the next step would be hot gluing on a pin right here, but you don't need a tutorial for that. I hope you found this entertaining. We have plenty of other videos on our channel. Feel free to check out our Swerve Baby series where our Swerve drive got developed. Yeah, I hope you guys made a pin. It's pretty simple. You guys should be good. Good luck.